Hi guys, hope you're well. I've got a really good guest today, and I know I say that every week, but for me it's all about having good chats, good conversations with real kind of business people from different parts of the world that all have different types of businesses. So my guest today is someone that I met, which I guess we'll touch on, so I won't ruin the surprise. But she's a really kind of good, inspirational business person that I think it's great for you to meet. And again, part of the reason why I like to share this kind of podcast and we clip it up for YouTube and Instagram and whatever, is actually there's a lot of people on their own journey who I think adds a lot of value when they can pick people's brains and almost just learn from other people's businesses. Why do they do what they do? How does it work? That kind of thing. So that's what I'm going to bring in with Nicky today. So Nicky, I'm just going to bring you in. There we go. Would you like to say hi to everyone?
Hi everyone, very pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. So how do we know each other? So actually it was an introduction from a lady called Dawn Huntrod.
Yeah.
That I'm trying to think. So I've known Dawn for probably 8 or so years. When we're both going through a career transition and making our respective moves quite recently, we had a Costa, and basically we were just picking each other's brains. And she was like, "Oh, there's someone I think you should really meet." And I was like, "Oh, who is it?" And then so I sent you I think it was on LinkedIn, just like an intro email, and then we had a meet, and I came down to your office. And then since we've kind of made the introduction, I've seen you quite a few kind of Bank of England networking events and different kind of things. One or two of the companies that I work with also use Nicky, so there's a different element to this talk that actually I can give some honest feedback. She asked me before we came on the call, would I be able to give her some, and I will, but I'll do it live in a good way. But that's only because it's good. If it was terrible, I'm not that mean. But yeah, so it was an intro from Dawn. So would you like to tell people about yourself and kind of a bit about the business?
Yeah, certainly. So I've been in HR for over 20 years, I dare to admit. Predominantly prior to my business, I worked for an oil and gas refinery, so at Petroplus down at Port Clarence, which was an amazing experience. It really was a different world in the oil and gas, and I loved it. Sadly, when the economic decline hit, we ended up closing all the refineries and the business went into administration.
Is that 2008 or 2014?
It started in 2008 where we did our first economic shutdown, but the actual business completely closed in March 2012. The administrators came in the January 2012. So yes, it was a decline for several years, I have to say.
It's what I find quite funny though is that I used to work in construction, and in pre-2008 I was working on a $100 million bauxite chemical refinery in Jamaica, and I was 24 at the time, big whatever international projects, because that's what I'd always been kind of groomed to do. And the truth is that if the financial crisis didn't happen and basically construction just bombed for quite a long time, you never know actually where your path would have taken you. Would I still be there? Would I still be doing whatever?
That's true.
So I guess it's quite nice in hindsight that when, I like to pick people's brains on this, because there'll be people who were impacted how you were then, and I was, or multiple times, I guess, who are going through that right as we speak, and we'll touch on this a bit later. But my point is that it can actually put you in a positive, back on the right track. I have a saying which I use with clients in different ways, but it's almost like never waste a good crisis. But actually there'll be a lot of people who might have been in jobs that they were happy with, but it might not have been their dream job, that actually the chance to kind of reassess, forced or not, and actually the options that you have can set a lot of people, it did with myself, on the right kind of path. So you're working for Petroplus?
Yeah, I totally agree with those sentiments that you've said. So Petroplus disappeared, and it was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? What do I do now? Do I go and try and find another job? I loved what I was doing. Probably would never have left, as you said, because I was comfortable. I used to work long hours, but over 4 days a week. We were always on call, but it meant I had that 1 day a week with my daughter and all of those things. So I'd have probably never proactively left had I not been forced to leave. So sat down with my husband and thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? And we decided that we would apply for the right jobs that came up, but we would also look for me to be self-employed, because he was already self-employed in a different sector.
Okay.
So we'd always vowed we'd never both be self-employed. And I have to say, 10 years on, I'm not really looking back now. It's amazing and we love it. So decided to set up HR Today, very much on the principle that my husband was a small company. I'd come from this massive £4 billion turnover company, had all these resources. I had a team of 6 people. We had legal in-house, had health and safety, and I had my HR team and training and all of those things. And it dawned on me that my husband, with at the time 1 employee, had all the same legal obligations as I had, but I had all this support with me and we were making everything happen. Yet he was supposed to be a jack of all trades and master of none in the end, because you have to do everything. So we set the model up on giving the expertise to these small to medium companies that didn't either have the resource or want to recruit, so that we could give them that expertise and support bespoke to them. That was the key for me. It needed to be tailored to what they need, not off the shelf.
It's because now that we're kind of talking it through, and this is a business strategy related podcast, but almost because my business model, I seem to say this to people every single day because it's very applicable to sole traders or otherwise, but my business model is exactly the same. That I realized in previous jobs is that there was a company turnaround that I was asked to do, and I already had my structure and the roadmap and stuff, which you've probably seen knocking about. And actually, I did the bulk of the work pretty quick. And I kind of realized that, yes, you can continue to improve it, etc. But likewise, even from like managing director type positions, I still stand by the fact that the strategic direction and support doesn't have to be full-time. And different companies have different needs. But again, that's almost where exactly you've just said, is that every single business or solopreneur or whoever is in a different position, different state. Mm-hmm. And actually, I think you do need to offer bespoke support to different companies because everyone's problems are different. But actually, I really embrace what your business model is. And then actually for the company that we spoke about, Offer, that I am supporting, that you also support, Claire raves about the business and the support and the kind of... you have the different Zoom calls and the different things, but it's support when you need it, if you need it. And almost, I just want to kind of throw this out there, is that especially in the past few months, there's been a lot of turbulence, shall we say, a lot of people asking for HR support. But in some ways, sometimes it was only Claire on the call. But I actually think that's a really good thing for both of you, because it means that the client, if they want the support, can get one-to-one conversation with someone.
Absolutely.
Without the need to pay someone full-time who has a specialism in that role. Because I also know, because my wife's an employment solicitor, if you get it wrong, it can be painful. But actually, the fact that your other customers weren't on the call is a good sign, because it means that they're busy doing stuff. So, almost like a lot of the people that I speak to in relation to whatever their business is and they do, because I do a lot of sales and marketing stuff, they often worry that actually, are their customers watching the stuff? But they don't have to be. They have to know you're doing it, and they have to see you around, that you're active. But actually, in some ways, it's good if they're not, because they're busy. And your job is to mold around their needs, not just ram stuff down people's throat and expect them to gobble it all the time. So I think you really have a good kind of business model. But do you want to tell people a bit more about all the different kind of services that you actually do?
Yeah, I mean, predominantly the main service is what I call the retained service. So that's, you pay a fixed fee every month, and we work on headcount. So it's based on, as you grow, we grow, rather than being one fixed price. And it's for a duration of time. We do an initial onboarding process, which, we review regularly. But the idea of that is we come in and get a snapshot of everything that you are. So your history, your warts and all. So we want to know what you've done with employees in the past, whether it be right or wrong. We're not there to judge. What we want is that picture of what are we starting with and where can we immediately start adding value. So we audit everything and we look at their policies, their procedures. Then we start our fact find and we do a full audit and fact find of everything they've got and what they want. Then we look at the plan of action of how that can be rolled out, how that can be supportive to them. It's quite intense the first 3 to 6 months, because it's important we get it right, but we also get to know you. Within that time, we're building relationships, we're building rapport. HR's never quite black and white. So what we want to do is make sure that we understand how you want to work. And, you know, a prime example of that would be is a client that we may have may ring up and go, Nicky, I know you're going to look after me. Whatever it takes, I just want to sack that person. It's not always ideal, but that happens. And they want to know that we're going to support them. Another end of the spectrum could be, we've got problems here, we want to support, we want to develop, we don't know what's best to do, how do we do it? And we work across the whole range. We're not there to dictate, we're there to make you aware of any risk associated, what value that has on your business right now. Is it imminent that it's resolved, or can we do other things? And to keep you on the straight and narrow. So yes, there's ACAS codes, yes, there's law, but we will work within those boundaries and get you the outcome that you want. So we're very reactive in terms of what the client wants, but we're also proactive. So if this COVID was a prime example, you know, when COVID hit, I sat there and thought, oh my God, what are we going to do? What does this mean to my business? Will I still have a business left?
Well, if it helps, everyone was in the same position. And again, it's almost where I see that the industry in general is moving towards. And it's actually, there's a guy called Seth Godin who's a really famous marketing guru. And he describes it as when you have jobs that could potentially be automated, and that's true for any kind of sector. Yeah. It's the artists and the creatives and the people that can respond to problems are the ones that will be protected long term. So again, in this scenario, it's actually, okay, so everyone gets hit with the same problem. The people that can actually kind of solve it quicker and better and more compliant than other people will do well. Does that make sense? And then actually, because of that, it's almost a natural selection type thing that, you know, the better people are more likely to succeed and kind of move forward. But that's almost what you pay for. So, you know, in some ways, it could be the perfect time for a lot of businesses, including mine, because it's your ability to outthink what everyone else does.
I mean, our phones were bombarded, so the team were just absolutely flooded with calls, and it was all the same thing. So it was like, what can we do? And I would never, ever have said, let's do Zoom, yay. But we embraced it, and we did, and we took Zoom on, and literally the first Zoom, I would say probably 60% of my clients came on. The phones just died because everybody had the same questions, the same issues, and they wanted reassurance. So we've kept that going. So that's been our whole ethos, and our values for the business is, how can we add more value? We never want to be a cost to a company. Mm-hmm. We never want them to get to this unprecedented time and say, oh, they're just a cost, get rid of them. We want people to look at us and say, we can't do without them. Yep. Where else can we make costs?
But I think, because I know what your fee is, and it's more than, I think it's really good. I think what you offer for the price and the service and stuff. And actually, I remember the first time I came down to your office. And again, I'm going to touch on this because actually I think it's really important for business owners and people that are looking to either survive now or even grow their own kind of thing, is that I think a lot of people get lost in the razzle dazzle of wanting the super glitzy high-end office, etc. Yeah. But a lot of people, including a lot of places where I work, what you essentially want is a fit for purpose service that delivers what the client needs. You solve the client problem. But actually, if you want, you know, one of the best ways to grow profit is to manage overheads. And I think you have, we'll ask in a second what your target customer is. But my point is, I think the way that you've structured your team, your building, your setup and all different things is perfect for your target market, because yours is actually the same as mine. That for me, it's probably businesses between 1 and 7 million, kind of sub 50 people, a bit rough and ready, but actually they're good, solid, honest businesses that just need a bit of guidance and a bit of help. And it's, you know, but when you actually kind of acknowledge that, because there was a point when I was like, well, actually, do I get office space? Because, you know, everyone likes the thought of having a nice office. But the truth is, I should never be there if I'm good at my job. But likewise, does it improve the ability of me to provide a good service to you or someone else? No, it doesn't. So actually, I'm going to save the cost. But off the same token with yourselves, almost the forced move to Zoom with COVID-19, it enables you to hit, in theory, an infinite number of people with your promotion and support and stuff that actually, because you're historically a northeast based business, is that right?
Predominantly, yes, yeah.
But
we do have clients up in Glasgow and Edinburgh and down in Surrey and Kent. So what the COVID-19 situation has done is actually strengthened our ability to work across the UK, because we've automated things. We've gone online with contracts and things like that. So and Zoom is great. You know, it's not quite a meeting, but it's the best you're going to get.
I think it's
if you're not able to meet,
because it's like, so I used to go to Aberdeen quite a lot, and just to drive up from Newcastle to Aberdeen is 6 hours. So a round trip is 12 hours. That's a hell of a lot of lost time. That actually now, because everyone is used to this, and actually I'm trying to get used to Google Hangouts for a different reason, for a different project I'm working on, but almost where they're all essentially the same. But my point is, because we're all forced to make the change, we're now pretty much kind of comfortable with it.
Yeah.
That I think, there's no reason for your own business development for your business that you couldn't actively target anywhere in the UK, or just anywhere actually within the time difference. And okay, so for what you do, because of the UK law element, that restricts to maybe the UK. But, in the Northeast alone, there's 10,000 businesses. Nationally, there are hundreds of thousands. In theory, now they're all potential customers that might not have been as true 6 months ago.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got prospects at the moment that we're working in Manchester, Wakefield, all over at the minute, that are potentials that, they've said we probably never would have looked at you previously, but because we have, like you say, been forced down this route. So in terms of our model, sorry, I was just going to pick back up. It's unlimited support. If it's remote support, it's unlimited. We will offer as much support as our clients need. And we draft everything to the point of print. You will never get a template from us. I never quite understand companies that go, you just write the letter and I'll check it. Why would you write the letter if you're not used to doing that? We live and breathe HR, and we want to look out for those pitfalls, and we want to be part of your team. We want to understand how people are thinking and things like that. So through this time, we've got to know our clients even better. We've been seeing them in their homes, we've seen the children, we've seen the dogs, which you would never, ever have got. And we are absolutely people focused. That's what we're about. And if you get to know people better, you can help them better.
That's true.
So we've been rolling out training sessions for our clients. We've been rolling out Q&As. They started at 3 a week and they were really busy. And then there was times when there was a lull. We used to do one on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And funny enough, those used to dip off quite quickly. So we've reacted and adapted. And that's what was really important to me, is when I reflected on my values, the values demonstrated they were everything they were meant to be. And it's what guided us to go online and offer this extra at no extra cost to our clients. If anything, we've done more for people through this than we would normally, and not because we didn't want to. We just didn't have the methods to do what we've been able to do this time. But we try to be proactive. We create bespoke employment handbooks that are full of detail, and how, they start at about 150 pages bespoke to your company. And we update those at least twice a year. So, although in the background, you guys maybe think, we haven't spoke to them for a while. We've always got things going on. We send reminders. We work with managers. We make sure managers are doing what managers should be doing, and stop them worrying about remembering things. We keep them going. So that's just kind of a flavour of what we do.
No, I think it's cool. Would you be happy to... So when you decided to start the business, I'm guessing it was just you?
It was, yeah.
And then I'm guessing you just kind of talk me through that kind of first year, because I'm now 8 months into it, but I'm fascinated to kind of get different people's viewpoints on how they found it and just the kind of process, and more gradually just kind of walk people through the story. And the reason I'm asking is because, in the same way that you just said, it's when people get to know your customers, because they're obviously real people. The more people get to know about you and your story and your back, the journey, there'll be people that really kind of resonate with it. And then the people that don't just won't watch it. So it's a win-win.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it was my spare bedroom. Literally, I'd get up on a morning and I'd go to the bedroom. And I'd be there thinking, oh, what do I do today? And I started drafting policies and procedures and working it through. And I was my first week of self-employed, I went to 13 networking events. Who I met, what the value was, what I got out of it was absolutely zero. But I didn't know what else to do. I'd kind of been thrown into this. It hadn't been planned and everything else. But I quickly started to realise that I needed to be getting a target market, understand what I was offering, what that pricing structure looked like. And for me, it was very important it was affordable. Mm-hmm. And I think prices, when you're starting out in business, is a real big issue.
Yep.
We started really low because we didn't add value to what we were offering. We were just going for, if it's cheap enough, people will just pay it anyway. And, through confidence and growth, you realise that's not a great strategy because you're selling yourself for nothing, and people need to think, actually, I'm paying for that expertise. And that was a real big learning curve for me. And it took quite a few years to get existing clients on that page, but I'm thankful to say that we did.
Yeah, there's quite a few younger people I kind of mentor, not officially, but I just, you end up doing it naturally. And I've told them many times they need to charge more. And it's the same kind of thing that with businesses, the kind of businesses we work with will have a price point that they're comfortable with. And within that, my point is often people go in too cheap, or they see themselves as, oh, well, so-and-so only charges that, so I need to compete. It's like, no, you don't. Because they either hire you or they want them. They're different things.
Yes. And I always say I am not the same as other people. My business is not the same. So look at me of what I'm offering and is it suitable to what you're looking for? So from this bedroom, we established what we call the retainer service. I ended up doing a bit of consultancy, which originally is what I thought I would be doing, is sort of nipping in, doing a project or redundancy or recruitment or whatever, and then popping out. But actually, this is where the return service grew legs. And this is where I felt and can honestly say, hand on heart, this is where I was so thankful.
Don't worry. It's fine.
I can't stop it.
Don't worry.
My husband stopped it. Apologies. Where do you want to pick up from?
No, just carry on. It's fine.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So we came up with this service. I can't remember what I was saying now.
You were talking about how the retained service and how it kind of, was the real kind of jumpstart to your business.
Yeah, so it grew legs in the business, and I can honestly say that I was truly, truly grateful through the pandemic that actually what it's done for me is create a stable business that has seen us through that. We didn't lose a lot of business. We've actually grown slightly through this process. So it meant that I've had stability. I've been able to offer the service that I've offered, and the clients have received more through this process. So that model at the outset was based on a financial services model, which is the sector my husband's in. And I can honestly say that's been a blessing through the last sort of 9-10 years that we've worked.
I've found that. So basically my first customer was actually in New York, between New York and Hong Kong, because it was a girl that I used to work with on that chemical refinery in Jamaica. She was my boss at the time, and she's American, and she went on and did her thing, and she was the chief operating officer for a Kickstarter, and they wanted to help with their strategy for how they pivot the company. And so my first customer wasn't even in the UK, and that was like an interesting one. But actually, I had bits and bobs of kind of one-offs and training, sales training, whatever. But actually, it's since, I think it was realistically like February, March, when my retained kind of things came in, that it just gives me so much more confidence that I try and far over deliver what I'm paid to do.
Yeah.
But actually, it gives me the confidence that I know I'm going to get paid every month.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think for everyone, no matter what your service is, although now for different companies, because I have my retained clients that I do, I love them for different ways, but I can offer one-off things for other people because I have the stability. So it's almost,
Absolutely.
trying to find what works for different kind of things.
You're not worried about where the next money's coming from and how you're going to pay the staff, which then enables you to be more flexible. So this is where we offer additional services such as consultancy, training. I do some work for some local solicitors that they bring me in as and when things need to be done on site. So that's enabled us to do the project work much easier, even though I started out thinking that's where I would end up going, is projects. So it's funny how things turn around, but yeah, it's just fantastic, and we're growing and we want to grow, but we don't want to grow too big because I don't want to lose the personal touch, and you can only look after so many people without that becoming too big.
So with you, at what point in your journey did you actually move to like an office or get your first person?
Well, I was very, very lucky, I have to say, because my husband was renting an office at the time and he wanted to expand. So he wanted to recruit another person. And I was getting a bit sick of at 1 o'clock in the morning still being in my box room, because I felt if I kept working in there, jobs would just leap out for me, because it was very nerve-wracking that first, probably, if I'm honest, 6 months, where I just thought if I keep working, something will happen. I don't know how I thought it was going to happen, but it did. So he was looking for somewhere bigger. So we were going to look for somewhere that I could just slot in a corner somewhere. And once we started looking on the rental market, we actually realised it was quite expensive and we could probably invest in buying somewhere, which is where we bought our unit. So I was lucky in one sense. Within 6 months of starting my business, we had the unit, which had already office space available, and we just separated it and we just moved in. And then I was able to bring on an apprentice to help me with the things that I'm not so good at. And that's when the journey began and we started to grow.
Because I've been going through this in my head as well, is that I always talk about how, depending on what type of business you want to build. So you mentioned before about how when you're at Petroplus, see, this proves that I actually listen. You're saying that you work 4 days. Not everyone does. You see so many interviews where it's scripted questions and stuff. Actually, this is the fun bit for me. But actually, so you were working 4 days a week, more time with your daughter, but almost you could have the life that you wanted. It's to build the model that does everything you want it to do, and you add value and give knowledge and do whatever, that kind of thing. But actually, at a certain point, I might choose to retire on a beach in Cyprus or whatever. That I'll probably never actually go the staff route, just because that's not the castle I'm trying to build. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
But I always massively appreciate, because one of the big things that I was in any company turnaround, the first thing I look at is your cost, your overhead. And again, as soon as you commit to premises or staff or even borrowing or whatever, it's that axe over your head every month that grows. And then, at some other kind of former companies, we always used to call it, it's like feeding the beast. So the bigger the beast gets, the harder it is to feed just to stand still. But because of that, I always kind of, embrace and celebrate people that, aren't afraid to kind of make that kind of step. And then, so how big is the company? Where are you kind of at now?
So we've got 5 employees at the moment. We were recruiting when this hit. So we're now picking that back up. We're going to be looking for a HR advisor, stroke administrator now. I don't ever want the team to be bigger than 12. I'm very much like you say, when you employ people, you've got a responsibility, you've got an obligation. I feel that their mortgages and their families are on my head. If I can't pay them, then I shouldn't be employing them. So I've got to be honest, I've had a rule of thumb after year 1 that if I didn't have a minimum of 3 months' salary in the bank at any one time, then I had a problem and I had to resolve it. And I've made the mistakes. I did a lot of consultancy in the first year. I just thought that was the quick wins. And I was working for other companies, going on site, doing their work and leaving the team. And it was like, we need more resource. We need telesales. We need a sales development person. I was employing all these people and I was working, paying for them. And when I sat down and did a bit of realization, actually the business wasn't earning enough to be paying these people other than my consultancy. So I was kind of working for nothing, really. I was like, this is madness. So I had a big lesson to learn, even though I'm in HR, it doesn't mean that we don't always get it right. It took me a year to get the business to break even at that point.
That's not good.
And that's why now I'm very careful about consultancy, because it's so easy to follow the cash and lose your focus.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool. But just I thought it'd be an interesting story to share, just because, you know, different people have different business models, and it's, you know, some businesses need to reach a certain point. And one of the kind of sweet spots, I was approached about a company turnaround in Scotland last week. One of my questions is always kind of, where are they at the moment? And the dream is companies that are almost, they're breaking even, but they're not making any money, because actually you can make a really big difference quickly. As where some kind of startups where you have to create the structures from scratch and put things in place and management, it takes a long time to build before you can demonstrate obvious value. As where in certain companies you can from day one just kind of go in. So I think we've kind of covered the business and kind of how you got started and your kind of journey and stuff. 2020 has obviously been quite a big year for HR, if you want to put it that way. Do you think it's almost the year that HR has kind of proven its value? Does that make sense?
I hope so. I hope it's not forgotten. You know, I hope people realise that, you know, from 5:30 on a Friday night to anything up to 12:30, legislation's coming in. You know, I've never watched the news and live conferences and, you know, read so much legislation in all my life. You know, we've literally been working all weekend. When this first hit, my team were working 12-hour days. I really do hope we're up there with the other professions, because up until now, it's just that function you have to have, but we'd rather do without. You know, HR can be really transformational for your business if you get the right partner and you do it right, whether that be in-house, external, via a consultant. I genuinely hope, and the feedback we're getting from our clients at the moment actually is that we've certainly added value. You know, there's comments on LinkedIn where clients have tagged on to other sort of videos and things that I've been involved with, and they're saying they've seen us through this. I just hope people remember that, because we've worked exceptionally hard. It's been exciting. It's been interesting. It's probably been the most exciting part of HR in all the time I've been in it. Not necessarily for the right reasons, because I realise it's had a big impact on lots of people for lots of things, you know, and mental health is a big issue that we've touched on and we've done some training with. You know, we lost quite a bit of training at the outset of this because people wanted it up front. But then others have gone ahead and done it online because it's been appropriate with what we've done, such as resistance training, mental health and things like that. So it's really allowed us to shine and to show what we can do. And I genuinely hope it is remembered, and I hope we can keep being the leading edge and keep offering these extra services to people, so that they can continue to value what we do for them.
In one of my former jobs, the company didn't have any staff employment contracts, and it was just bringing it all in from scratch, but doing it in a way that it was there to protect the staff. And it was just, but it's for me, it's how you run, or you should run things properly. But actually that comes down to my skill set. So even before, when you were saying about the, you know, your value versus someone else, if you want to hire someone else who has a different approach, hire them. You know, I will always be I always do the right thing by the business owner, but ironically, it's not always what the business owner wants. You know, so likewise, if, like, you know, the company that we spoke about before the call started, one of the best things that you can do with them or anyone, it's actually to empower the staff. It's to listen to them. What challenges do they have? What gets in your way? How can we help fix it? And if you can help take all of your staff from a 6 out of 10 to a 7 or an 8, just by removing headaches or things that don't work or whatever, which I would argue put as good management in HR, you can have massive impacts on your bottom line and profitability, because actually people are happier, they feel developed, they feel like they're on source of process. And actually, you know, all of those things are super valuable. But even just on a pure, you know, brass tacks, nuts and bolts kind of thing, if you get employment law wrong, it can cost you a fortune. So if that's the only thing that a business owner cares about, it's still worth investing in, even if you don't care about the staff. You know, it's important. There's multiple benefits to doing it properly or outsourcing it, that I have learned and seen firsthand, but actually almost especially so, I guess, over the past 4 or so months, and truth be told, the next 4 months. And I'll say it so you don't have to, so I'm not putting words in your mouth. But actually, I can see that there might be a number of redundancies, but just generally across the board. I just wanted to throw that out there. That, you know, so just before we came on the call, there was a speech by Boris, and he was talking about how the government's going to invest. I think it was build was his tagline. They love their 3-word tagline. But what he's trying to do from a human psychology point of view is to give people confidence, because it's a well-known fact that recessions happen because of confidence, not actually because of anything else. So almost the more confidence we can give people in the future, be that as people who are looking for jobs to find the next move, or for companies to invest and survive, you know, I think it's really important. And I think HR is kind of shone this year, you know, in the same way that our NHS has, and even like delivery drivers and stuff. And my hope is that, you know, it kind of continues and moves forward and that kind of thing. So how do you see the kind of the marketplace changing over the next few years, if at all?
We're already seeing, I mean, we've seen probably, touching on your last point, we've probably got about 1/3 of clients that are looking to where they can tighten up. Is that going to result in any redundancies and things like that? We've been very lucky through this process that we've had a range of clients varying from administrative to engineering, manufacturing, all kind of ranges really, from abattoirs to all sorts of things that we deal with. So some closed completely and it was just, whew, they've gone. And then others have worked right through. And it's interesting how they're all adapting differently. And I do think sort of the next 6 to 12 months is going to be interesting for us to see what happens with our existing clients, but also in the economic side of things. And I did see Boris's communication, and I agree with you. It's about confidence. It's about setting up what the future can look like. You know, at the very beginning, I was going on lots of calls, and one of the things I was saying to people is, because I don't know if other people found it is, but people were holding back on money. They weren't paying their bills. And I kept saying, I'm really small. I'm trying to pay all my bills early because I can afford to. Please bear in mind, it's the smaller companies that you've got to do that. And that, I suppose in hindsight, what I was doing is what Boris is saying now is keep spending, keep the economy going, and keep striving forward. The one thing we're very good at is sticking together, stronger together, and driving stuff forward. So I think in the next 6 to 12 months, I hope people can see we have bailed some companies out who haven't had HR. We, every week since COVID started, have done a non-client Q&A, purely for the people that haven't had HR, didn't necessarily have the finances to commit, didn't have the finances to have it in place at the time. And that was us giving back. We wanted to give to the community to say, look, this isn't a sales pitch. We're not here to be preaching and selling to you. We're here to help. And interestingly, I'm really shocked at some of the size companies we've had on. We've had other HR professionals that have come on because they haven't had the resource to do what we've had to do and literally plow through legislation. Some companies have one HR person and they're sat there thinking, have I got it right? What am I doing? So I think HR will be more respected, more valued. I hope people will look at it, what's the best fit for them, whether it be to be in-house with external support or completely external. But again, I think it's going to come down to whether they believe Boris, whether there's confidence, and whether they're willing to invest. We've got a lot of prospects at the moment of people that we've been working through this process, and we're hoping that they're going to fall. We have signed up people for 3 and 5 year contracts through COVID. So there is some confidence already there, and the feedback we're getting from them is amazing. So I genuinely, from a HR point of view, think we're going to grow, which is where we wanted to get to. But I think the economy, I'd like to hope that we don't hit the recession or as bad as people think, because of the support the government have given us all the way through. They can't genuinely do any more than what they're doing at the moment.
Can I ask you a difficult question?
Go on then.
And you can answer just from a generalist perspective, but I'll answer it as well.
Okay.
A lot of the companies that I know of, and this is all different sizes and stuff, I think there will have been a lot of people out there that saw the furlough scheme and took advantage of it. And actually, there are companies, I think, what was the stat? It was almost 29% of people that were asked, someone said to them, were you asked to go be furloughed and still work? And I don't know, I want you to comment on that, but it's almost I worry that companies they jumped on it, and now as it starts to get weaned off, I don't know how many will actually want to keep their full level of number of staff. Does that make sense? And it's almost
completely.
I
think a lot of people have had the opportunity to reflect. And it's interesting, actually, the behaviours we've seen in companies. We've seen sort of from an accountancy point of view, where they've actually seen their staff flurry and they've seen them really step out. You know, I had one client that said to me, he said, do you know, since this, I've actually seen my staff in a different light, but I've also seen my managers in a different light, because they're seeing more productivity from their employees who've worked at home than they have in the office. So that's now making them rethink about their culture and their management style.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, they've said we didn't really rate some of those people, but they've absolutely shone through this. We have had some of the COVID fever that I hit the press with, where some people don't want to come back and have openly admitted, I'm enjoying it. I can afford to live on 80%. I've got time with my family I've never had before. I'm not spending as much because there's nowhere to go. So we've had both extremes. We've had people desperate to come back, people who are actually enjoying it, don't want to come back. And we've had the change of where people have said, I never want to work from home, to, oh my God, this is amazing. And the companies are wanting them to come back and they don't want to actually people going, do you know, I always thought I wanted to work from home. Now I don't. I want to go back. We actually were fine working from home, but my team asked to go back. So we've put provisions in place. We've had the whole office redecorated while they've been away. It's all been sanitised. And part of my team are back already. And that was because they wanted to, not because I insisted on them going back.
Cool.
Because they work stronger and better as a team.
It's because the other dynamic as well is that you have, imagine you've got a team of 6 people, keep the numbers easy, 3 get furloughed, 3 don't. There's the element, especially if people have been topped up, where the 3 that remain in work are working their arse off because they're covering 6 people's work, or, you know, a fair bit. And then there's also the dynamic of, I can see and feel the mental health challenges if you were furloughed and what that could put onto you. So I understand that. But then you've also got the flip side, as someone else is getting paid 80% or potentially 100% for not doing anything. And we're going to have this strange period where we go back to normal, and some people have fought all the way through and shone and really, you know, put one in for the team, and other people haven't. But then there's almost a strange dynamic between everyone feels hard done by for different reasons. And I think in some ways, it's almost where you'll need good leadership within companies just to kind of get everyone back on the same team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I would agree. We've seen resentment. Then, you know, I've personally worked all the way through. I think I did manage to get 1 day off throughout all of this, which for me is a record. If anybody knows me, I like my holidays. I've had 5 holidays cancelled throughout this period. I've been exhausted, and, you know, it's been tiring. But what I would say is, had I have not worked, I think I would have really struggled. So I have a lot of sympathy for a lot of the people that were automatically furloughed, didn't get a choice. And have struggled through it. I can see why there's some resentment for people. Well, I'm only getting 20% extra and I'm working, like you say, with my arse off to keep this going. And then you've got them sat at home, sat in the sun, because, my God, we've had the best weather the country has ever seen generally through this. And I think you're right. It's a very mixed thing. And I think it's affected people very, very differently. Coming back to your point about people abusing furlough, I can honestly say I'm not aware of any one of my clients that have tried to abuse it. I am aware of family friends that have said, is that right then, that I get 80%, but I've got to keep working? And you think, oh my God. It's hard not to get people into trouble with that. But yes, there are genuinely people that have took complete abuse and advantage of this, where they haven't either paid the staff the money they've had, or, they've made people work. We have always told the line, we've said to the employers that we work with, it's not worth it. And HMRC have clearly said they may investigate. And I think it's about getting that balance right. But yes, I think there's winners and losers, and I think everybody's in that mix. But touching on bringing the teams back, there's a hurdle that companies are going to have. And, MDs, owners, CEOs need to be thinking, what does that look like? You can't necessarily take everyone to the pub. You can't necessarily go and do a team building exercise, because you're all going to have to be at least 1 metre apart at the moment. But there are things you can do. The one thing I've learned more about my team through this, we set up a WhatsApp group the very next day. We set up Zoom. That was my practice. Oh my God, look, you can see my face first thing on the morning. But think about, there's loads you can do, but where it's going to struggle is that people just think, well, they're back at the office now. What more do they want? They're getting paid. Yeah. That's not the right attitude. People need to be thinking out of the box that bit more.
Because I think for me, it's where the good companies with the good kind of moral ethics and the people that act in a better way, are more likely to hang around. They'll have better reputation. And let's face it, rumours happen where I think bad eggs normally get found out. But almost the people that go above and beyond, they chip in, they work hard, I think that'll get recognised in time, for loads of different reasons. And, I think there will be a lot of people that, even just from a business development point of view for yourself, doing the calls with non-clients, it will implant a seed with the company going, actually, that was really useful. And then suddenly you've done your job. So even if that doesn't kind of come back for 2-3 years, you've done the right job. And kind of related to this is that when we first met, one of the comments that you had was that, I think you mentioned that most of your work comes through referrals.
That's right, yeah.
See, I remember, I listen.
I know. Gosh, this was so long ago. You do remember so much of it. Predominantly, my business has grown on referrals, which is amazing, and it's fantastic. But from a development point of view, it's really hard to project, and it's hard to get out there. But I wouldn't want it any other way. All my prospects at the moment, some of them are people that said no, even up to 2 years ago, and that have come back and said, I always said if I needed HR, I'll come back to you, which is great, because then it wasn't really an excuse. But dealing with a referral to somebody that's completely cold is so, so different, because there's credibility. I always think if you refer somebody, you are giving your credibility away. If you get that wrong and put them in front of an absolute numpty, that person is going to really have a different view of you. So, referrals is something that I develop and I grow, and I build up relationships with people. And that's probably my marketing strategy, is to start working. And we are working with more people, and we've got a pool of people that we work with for referrals. And it's the way I like it. I don't think I want the cold calling and all of that.
I think it is the best way if someone independently. So for instance, me at the start of this call saying that the companies I work with, actually, because I've had chats offline, they recommend your service. I will happily recommend you, and have done to other people, because I trust the word of mouth. But the same is also true. People that are terrible and they're shit at their jobs and they don't turn up and whatever, I'll also tell people if they ask me. I won't broadcast it, but I'll say, look, just stay away. My point being that, again, it's all like natural selection. The better people will kind of survive.
Yes.
So if anything, it's how the bigger your pool of companies gradually becomes, you should exponentially grow in time. Does that make sense? If they all recommend
it? Absolutely.
And then one of the best things that you could do, which would be a free kind of sales tip, would actually be, once this has died down a bit, email all your customers that you know really well, and actually just say, if you were to recommend me to 2 people, who would it be? And then use that as a way to just hit a lot of people. Because if you've obviously over-delivered and you've really stepped up, because say if you've got 50 clients, that could potentially be another 100 new clients that you're going to get so it's asking someone, will you introduce me to 2 people? And actually it costs you nothing, but I guarantee you'll probably do very well from it. But my
I'll come back on here and feedback on that one in 6 months' time.
No, honestly, do. But like prime example, so for instance, the company turnaround that I had a call about on Friday for a company in Scotland was a guy I met. I'm not even sure how. He was a friend of a friend like 2 years ago. And my point is, if you stay around, you do social media, just stay on people's radar. You'd have to be in their face.
No.
And then, because the other thing as well, your LinkedIn tagline is very good, as hopefully mine is. Just make it clear what you do, so that if anyone ever needs that problem, Nicky, and it's just
we pride ourselves on no nonsense HR. We do,
but it just ticks the box. But honestly, I think implement the asking for do 2, not 1.
Yeah. Okay.
And it costs you nothing. And actually, I think you'll do very well from it, which is cool.
Fantastic.
I'm just
Thank you.
scanning through my questions. I have one, because it's to do with an initiative that I'm kind of involved in, is that as a man, I have a different viewpoint on stuff. And, almost my approach to business might be different to yours. And that could be to do with culture and just the way I've been brought up and the way men are perceived in the media and the way people act. So I'm part of this Google initiative called I Am Remarkable, and it's helping to empower and motivate and almost promote women and people from different backgrounds and ethnic minorities in the kind of workplace. But almost for yourself, through your career, then starting your own business and as like a female leader in industry, how have you found that journey? Has it always been easy, or it never came up? Or I'm interested to know.
I don't ever see it coming up, but to be fair, having spent 10 years in oil and gas and wearing my overalls and my steel toe caps, I've probably got over any of that issue. I've had to stand up to managers, and I've been out on site, and I've escorted people off site who've, failed a drugs test and things like that. So personally, my upbringing and my life has never kind of been an issue that, I'm a woman compared to a man. I've always seen it as a challenge to prove myself. So in business, has that affected me? I don't think it has, if I'm honest. It's never come up as an issue. I will work as hard as anybody, if not more. And I think the hard work has paid off. And I'm now in a position that I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. The team are happy and enjoying it. And I hope we can bring more people into that team and spread that. But yeah, I don't think that's been an issue for me.
Because one of the things I like about business is almost, there's an American sports owner called Mark Cuban, and he describes business as being like the ultimate sport, because you play 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there's an obvious score or not, and everyone competes. And actually, it's an interesting way to look at it. But my point is that almost talent will always come through. It doesn't necessarily matter where you're from or your background or whatever, if you've got the drive and the determination and the idea and willing to kind of find your niche and work on it. I think almost the internet has been a great kind of democratizer of that, and for publicity and support and stuff. Related to the whole men versus women thing, what's your view on like gender pay gap? Did the reporting work? Did it come into force? As in, has it made any difference?
I struggle with this one, if I'm honest. I mean, I go back to oil and gas. I was paid on par of all of my colleagues. I worked my way up in the 10 years that I was in oil and gas. I never saw it as an issue. We rewarded people equally. I know it's out there that it does happen, and people, ladies are paid less than men. Did it make a difference? I suppose it's made a small difference, because anything that's brought out to the public domain is going to make a difference, and it will subconsciously make people think, actually, we need to be a bit more. I think people are just more naturally aware. I think women know their rights better, so they will speak up more than maybe they would have, that have been grateful in the past, maybe. And I say that generally, I'm not saying everybody would be like that. I think as a whole, it's balanced out better. I know statistics would say that's not the case. I think opportunities are out there for everybody. And if you've got that drive, determination and competition, you'll get whatever you want to get. And I think it's just having the right mindset, if I'm honest. I think anything with the right mindset isn't a problem.
Oh, cool. So I ask all my guests two main questions kind of before we finish. So I don't know if you've been prepped for these, but I think it's almost really interesting, and I give it my own different section on YouTube, just like kind of clip it up. But if you were to look back over your career or your life, etc., would you be happy to share what is the best piece of advice you've ever had?
My best piece of advice was from a gentleman called Alistair, and I've had 4 Alistair directors in my life. But Alistair once said to me, because I said to him once, you've got an amazing team here at the refinery. And he said, the best advice I can give you is surround yourself with the people that fill your weakness of gaps. So you know what you're good at, and surround yourself in a team of the people that can strengthen your weaknesses. And that was the best advice I ever got. You can't be brilliant at everything. No,
it's interesting. And the thing that I also love, which just came to mind, is the fact that this is like my 17th interview, and every single one of them's been different. You know, it's
okay. Well, I'm privileged to be here, so thank you.
No, it's cool. But again, it's I find this really useful because you often only need. For me, it's almost someone, you might say one thing and it just sparks in someone's mind, and it just changes their whole kind of mindset. Because there's a guy called Matt McGough who runs Ithaca Films in Middlesbrough, and he made a really good one, which really kind of sunk in with me, actually. And it's when I let it marinate, and then I'll probably tweet about it the next day. And it was all to do with how, you know, if business is like a marathon, realistically, it goes on for years, like 30, 40 years. Why are you trying to achieve everything in year one? Why are you sprinting?
Yeah.
Because again, like in a running analogy, if you set off full speed and you work till 1 a.m. and you're constantly killing yourself, you're going to burn out at something. And almost one of the best pieces of advice that I have ever kind of brought in, and it was back in 2009 when I started my first business. I used to work again till like midnight, 1 a.m. And my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, would force me to come to bed.
Yeah.
And actually now we religiously go to bed pre-9 o'clock. And it just means that I can sustain hard work every day, 7 days a week, or however I choose to balance it. But I can do that for 26 years. And actually, but it was the one thing that Matt said that made me think, it's interesting, because again, there's different parts of my business that are scalable, but I don't need to rush them. Does that make sense?
It was a bit like when I was a new mum. Somebody said to me, sleep when the baby sleeps. Mm-hmm. There's a degree of in business, turn off when the business is closed. You know, it kind of resonates to me. You can work every day, every night, every weekend, but your clients aren't expecting you to be there. And you will perform better if you can work when they need you rather than when you think you should be.
No,
Starting out a new business is always, I think, the biggest issue, pricing and learning to switch off.
Yeah. So my other question, which is similar, but it is different, is that if you were to give advice to your younger self, and you can pick any age, any part of your career, whatever you want, what would it be?
Oh, crikey. That's a really hard question, if I'm honest. I think always know you can go for your goals. I think when I was younger, I lacked a lot of confidence. And there was another Alistair that gave me the opportunity to work in HR. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here now. I think the younger generation have a lot of pressure. So if I was to go back, I didn't do very well with my exams at school. I wasn't a great student, shall we say. And I think I panicked, and I think that's what gave me the drive and determination. And I think anything is possible. I've then since gone and done my degree. Alistair supported me through my degree, you know, said I'd be great in HR. I didn't even know what HR was. So I did a master's degree under his tuition, and he was the person that gave me the opportunity. So always look out for the people around you that will give you the best opportunities that you least expected.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good. I like that. And what I find funny is that it's how everyone's path is different, and it's always easy in hindsight to piece it together. But actually, you know, a lot of the pivots in my life haven't been by choice, but actually I wouldn't change them. Does that make sense? So it's almost when something negative that's happened, it's just make the best of it. But actually in hindsight, it tends to work out.
You touched on that earlier, didn't you, where you said a lot of people are going to be facing redundancies, and you know, rightly or wrongly, in redundancies, I've been known to say this isn't the end of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise you, within 6 to 12 months, you'll come back to me and say, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. And they, you know, if looks could kill at that time, but I can honestly say a number of people throughout my career have, you know, we've crossed paths again, and they've said, very much like you said, you know, at the beginning, I wouldn't be self-employed had I have not been made redundant by the administrators. They've come back and said it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I'm now doing this, or whatever. And it's really hard to put that into context when you've just lost your job. You're thinking, how do I pay my mortgage? How do I tell my family? How do I not feel a failure? You know, none of those are true. But generally with survivors, and it will be all right. It's like anything, if you can look back in hindsight, why did I stress about that? It's nothing now. So yeah, I think you've touched on it throughout this, and it's true. Everything is an opportunity in life. So try and see the silver lining and use that to your advantage.
Oh, cool. So I'm conscious we've been on for a while now, but anyway, is there anything you'd like to plug or talk about before we go?
Just talk to us, come and see us. You know, we're there to help. There's no obligation. We don't do hard sales because I don't know how to. If anybody is looking for HR, talk to us. We'll have a solution that will fit you, and give us a chance. That's what I would say, because we'd love to work with you, and we will do our utmost to offer you leading edge, proactive, and more importantly, we'll be there when you need us for HR.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you for your time this afternoon. I thought you had a really kind of good story to tell. I don't know if you noticed, but the attention to detail I tend to go into. I even followed your colour scheme for the orange as my background and the blue shirt.
I know, yeah. I never got Bertha in it. I never mentioned Bertha.
You can mention
Bertha, my
Bertha
little
now.
smart car. Yes.
Now that you've said it, you have to tell people what it is.
Okay. So if nobody's met Bertha, we have a hashtag BeepBeepBertha, and she's our newest addition to the team, and she is a little logoed up smart car, and she is adorable, and she now has HR Today mugs in the car. So if you ever see BeepBeepBertha out on the street, you've got a hashtag. If you can stop her without getting run over, she'll give you a mug if you see her. So look out for BeepBeepBertha.
Because the funny thing is, so we're both NEPIC members.
Yes.
And both at the Wilton Centre, but also at various different events, it does stand out.
Yeah, she's good.
It works. So, but again, it's the funny thing with, you know, we were talking before about sales and your promotion and stuff. It's almost how, as the leader of the organisation, just through going to these events and keeping your face out there and being involved with the Zoom calls, people generally, when you meet someone new, you look at, okay, what do they do? Can I use it? And you just plant it in the back of your mind. And then at a certain point, you might choose to cash in on it or not. But again, just having Bertha or your live stream or whatever, it just keeps you on people's... And it's not a hard sell, but it's kind of, oh yeah, I've seen Nicky around, she's doing this. So no, cool. But no, thank you for your time today. I'm sorry my voice has been very croaky.
Great.
But no, but
thank you very much.
I just think it's an interesting time for HR and for the sector. And there's a lot of people going through a lot of tough times at the moment, business owners and employees. And that's one of the reasons why I put a post up 4 days ago.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Because basically a year ago, I was miserable. And I did the same as and actually what was quite funny, because it was at a well-known event down in London. And there was 1 or 2 people I knew from networking, but we didn't really know each other. But at the time, we had a good chat. And I reached out to her and spoke to her yesterday and said thank you. But my point is, there'll be people now who might find out that they're getting made redundant. And, you know, there'll be a few. they'll be going through what I went through last year. And actually, ironically, I didn't get made redundant, but I was just miserable. But there's a difference. But my point is that it did improve. It wasn't shit forever. And it was almost, it was one of those things that, you know, it's just one day at a time. Just take it as it is, and then kind of, you know, just keep moving. Do your best.
And it is right. Usually, I would, you know, 9 times out of 10, people will turn around and go, it was the right thing, even though I wasn't happy. You know, for whatever reason, I wasn't happy. It wasn't for me. I would never have moved. I would never have gone self-employed. How can you not be more grateful for that? For having more time with my family, my daughter, you know, all of those things. And you just have to look at it and say, everything happens for a reason. Just look at it positively and make the most out of life, because it's too short.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I will end this now, and basically I'm going to spend the next few hours. I edit it up, and I'm going to edit out all my coughs.
You. Yeah, and my stupid bit with the phone and all of that.
See, I'll leave this all in, but when you clip it up for different things, it's yeah. And then I'll pick the best bit, and that goes on because LinkedIn only lets you do a 10-minute. Video.
I did wonder when we sort of got to 4 o'clock, I was thinking, gosh, I can't believe we've been talking for an hour and a bit.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, how long is it going to be? People will be bored to death of me. But
no, so basically just so you know, I have the whole thing, which I take out all the coughs and stuff, so they all disappear. Then the whole thing goes onto YouTube and also goes onto the podcast. That's like long form stuff. I then pick up the different sections on gender pay gap, whatever. There's like a 5 to 7 minute clip, and they all separately go on YouTube, and then I pick the most interesting 10 minutes, and that goes on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And you know, so
well, if you send me links, we'll put it on our YouTube and we'll promote your services and everything else. So
cool. No, but thank you.
Send me a shareable version.
Yeah, no, cool. Well, thank you for kind of having a chat today.
Thank you.
And
when we can meet, we'll go for lunch or something. We'll do something proper, something sociable. Maybe invite Dawn along and do something, you know, like that. I
am planning to actually message Dawn, because I think she'll have an interesting story to tell for loads of different reasons.
Oh, good. She'll love it.
So at some point, she'll be sat where you are, which is probably at home, but technically, you know what I mean.
Yes.
Cool. And I'm sure I will see you around soon.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you.
Cheers, Nicky. Bye-bye.
Take care.